I never told you guys how my thesis proposal, The Girls and the Gays Own God, was accepted. The full title is The Girls and the Gays Own God, the Reclamation of Religion in Music Through the Invocation of Religious Imagery. I'm so excited. I'll be writing it this fall. And when I was actually drafting my proposal is when Lil Nas X dropped Montero. And so my introductory paragraph to my proposal is just talking about that. Honestly, I was kind of disappointed when he dropped it because he kind of said my entire thesis and hit a much wider audience than I ever could, but I loved it. So yeah, in my thesis, I want to understand why queer and female musicians, yes, there's obviously overlap there, utilize religious imagery within their music. Why are they doing this, and also how are they doing this? And also, why are fan bases being constructed around that, especially considering the position historically women and gay individuals have held in relation to religious institutions? Is it all just an exercise of collective coping? I have more to say on this, so if you guys have questions, please ask.
Shut up, liberal. You're being such a liberal. I'm not a liberal, I'm actually an anarcho-communist. Psh, same thing, dumb liberal. They're actually very different. Did you know that there's more than two political ideologies? The phase more than two activates my fight or flight response. You said the same thing about gender. Anyways, there's liberalism, there's anarcho-communism. Learn something.
Incredible. One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted.
I was this close to replying OMG same because I forgot that Republicans exist. Like in real life. Like I thought this person was a communist. Because I was about to be like, OMG same, comrade.
People be like, capitalism is evil and greedy, socialism is the way to go. Well, then why does it never work?
You have to stop saying socialism has never worked, because that's not a good argument. Because every time socialism has been implemented or socialists have gotten to power, it has improved the material conditions of the working class. Like this study pulled data from the World Bank from 1983 and found that physical quality of life was better in socialist countries than capitalist countries. Or look at Burkina Faso under Thomas Sankara. He vaccinated 2 million children, total cereal production rose 75%, and he planted 10 million trees. Or look at Nicaragua under the Sandinistas. Their literacy campaign lowered the illiteracy rate from 50% to 12%, and their healthcare programs helped reduce under 5 mortality by 50%. The only reason that socialism has never worked, or that you don't see socialist governments around today, is because Western powers have always interfered with them. Thomas Sankara was eventually overthrown in a coup led by the French. The Sandinistas had to fight the Contras throughout the 80s, which were funded by the CIA. And the list goes on and on.
Guys, it literally says you are sus and there's a phone number on here.
If you don't know the difference between socialism and communism, please stay for this video because I'm going to educate you. So, after the Industrial Revolution, everybody saw that the industries were getting richer while all of the people who were working in those industries were getting poorer. And then, when Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, he basically criticized the socialist movement as a utopian fantasy. He proposed that instead of anybody owning property, that nobody owns property. So with socialism, you can still own property, but you only own property as a community rather than privately. And communism says nobody should own property. So basically, socialism is the transition in between communism and capitalism.
Leftists will be like, ha ha ha, I know a place. And then they'll send you a card full of free revolutionary literature and videos so you can learn how to be a better leftist. It's me. I'm leftist, and the card's in my bio.
Congratulations. No one agrees with you. Not a single, literally not a single person. Go away.
Oh, you're a communist. Okay, so you're gonna look me in the eye and tell me that you never wanted a pair of Heelys.
Working men of all countries unite. Carl, stop. Who the fuck are you? Give me that. You forgot to account for the wheelie shoes.
No, babe, I promise it makes perfect sense, so just listen. Okay, so dialectical materialism is just this overarching idea in Marxism that the fundamental basis of reality is matter. And it makes perfect sense, just let me explain.
Hello, Bessies. It's time to talk about the difference between racism against Chinese people and racism against other East Asians, namely Japanese and Korean people, in America. America loves to consume from Japan and Korea's extremely well-developed culture industries, and because they have such distinct brands, think K-pop versus anime, Americans often conflate an entire nation, its culture, and its people with this one cultural commodity, which is why the racism is not always aggressive. It's fetishization, commodification, the way a consumer looks at a product, especially because the product is so often sexualized. Think anime booby waifus and how K-pop groups take advantage of your parasocial relationship with them. But China doesn't have that. They don't have a definable commodity or brand, and America is also very clear on its stance on China, which is why the racism tends to be more aggressive and violent. Chinese people are equated to the enemy of the state. Let me know if you want to know more. I have a lot more to say.
If you can't live without something, it should be free. Simple as that.
Stupid liberals. Let me explain economics to you. See this graph? See how those two lines intersect? That's why people have to starve.
Do you even left, bro? Today we're asking, what is fascism? Fascism is a far-right ideology based in authoritarian nationalism and tradition. Because of this, it can look different in various countries. In 1995, Umberto Eco releases his essay, Fascism, where he discusses his youth in fascist Italy and 14 characteristics of fascism.
Disclaimer, fascism doesn't work like a checklist. Not all 14 have to be checked for it to be diagnosed fascism, but these are common traits associated.
Traditionalism. Think, make America great again. The past holds all knowledge. A rejection of modernism. A disdain for modern media and self-expression. Irrationalism, the distrust of scientists, utmost allegiance to the nation, an opposition to diversity, the lie that traditionalism will solve modern issues, an identity in race and nationality, outgroups are the source of every problem, perpetual war, exceptionalism, death in the name of the nation, glorification of masculinity and phallic weapons like guns and knives, silencing political opposition, and speaking in dog whistles or coded language. With a long history of anti-fascism, it's important leftists understand the warning signs in order to stop it. So, let's talk about leftist portrayal in media. And today, we're going to focus on The Kids Next Door. Now, Kids Next Door focuses on 5 10-year-olds and their fight against oppressive adults and malicious teenagers. The show itself has ideas of historic materialism built right into the lore, as K&D, the organization, has an unknown origin as the fight between kid and adult has gone back so far. The show even has built-in class traitors as an antagonist with the delightful kids from down the lane. Now what I want to touch on is the interesting portrayal of guerrilla warfare, with things such as their treehouse bases and 2x4 technology, which is essentially just a hodgepodge of common items that they can just put together to make weapons out of. For real-life comparison, guerrilla warfare becomes essential when fighting large oppressors from smaller factions. And building liberation armies with weapons that you can just scrap together is essential. So, absolute respect, comrades next door.
Darling, I understand you want a cool communist boyfriend, okay? But chasing after Mr. Mustache nicotine addiction is counter-revolutionary when you are young and beautiful and can rob a member of the bourgeoisie with your looks alone. Find a sugar daddy, redistribute the wealth. That's praxis. That's harm reduction.
Oh, delectable. Of course, Big Macs for bigger men.
What's the biggest grievance? Give us your overview.
All right, what we're talking about is that we believe in democracy. I mean, the problem with the word socialism is that very often it's been equated with what happens in the Soviet Union, which is authoritarianism and totalitarianism. I believe very strongly in the right of dissent, and I think people with my ideas fight for those things very strongly. What we talk about is the fact that in our society, theoretically a democratic society, you have a handful of people who control our economy. You have maybe 2% of the population that owns 1/3 of the entire wealth of America, 80% of the stocks, 90% of the bonds. And these people have incredible power. They sit on huge corporations like the Chase Manhattan Bank, the multinational corporations, and they determine the destiny of our entire country. As you know, perhaps 50% of our population has so given up on the democratic process, they don't even vote, and those are primarily poor people.
If you land this, I'll give you a kiss.
Okay.
Aw, damn. If you land this one, I'll give you a kiss.
Oh my god!
Do you remember when fast food places used to look like this? Or when Pizza Hut actually had a hut? And now all fast food places look like this, or like this. It's funny, because I've seen people call this communism, but this is literally just how capitalism works. So when Panera and Chipotle entered the fast food scene in the 2000s and did really well with their fast casual, more modern and mature aesthetic, the rest of the fast food restaurants decided that's the way to go. So the restaurants went full grayscale, maybe with a little pop of color or a wood finish somewhere. This also helped with resale value so that these unique designs didn't have to be awkwardly converted when they went under and somebody else had to buy the property. I bet you know a repurposed IHOP in your town. So now we just have this because that's what the free market wants, and it's clearly the most innovative because it's the most profitable. And we all know we're just pawns in a game of corporate profit.
So there are some signs that show us that we are in late stage capitalism. The tiny house movement, the off-grid movement, the deleting your social media movement, and Gen Z is a generation that is largely refusing to work. They largely reject working 40 to 50 years of your life just to have 10 to 15 years of it be the best years of your life when you're like really old. So yeah, I think these are signs that we are in late stage capitalism. But what
At first, I was like, feet, as a joke. But bro, I don't think it's a joke anymore.
I have like one more year of capitalism left in me.
There was another creator who stitched this and said that an empire usually lasts around 250 years and the US is about 5 years away from that. And I thought that was so crazy because something that also has a 250-year cycle is the planet Pluto. And the US is literally about to have its Pluto return in 2022. For those that don't know, the United States has a birth chart and it has its natal Pluto in the second house. The second house rules money, finances, but it also rules what we value. The planet Pluto rules transformation and destruction. Return in astrology is when a transiting planet has returned back to the exact same degree and sign that it was when someone or something was born. We're never gonna go through a Pluto return because we don't live 250 years. But America is. The stitched creator who was talking about how the collective is now realizing just how unsustainable capitalism is and how we're all realizing that the system is not working in direct correlation with the United States Pluto return back to the second house exactly where it was 250 years ago. Just as we're experiencing the worst wealth inequality known in history, student loan debt is almost $2 trillion, current housing crisis and no affordable housing. And more than ever, people aren't just challenging what America values, also challenging how American capitalism was built off the backs of Black and Indigenous people. Get ready.